the Steam Machine will cost over $1,000. Whoa, my wallet can't wait to pony up $1,000 for just an HDMI cord that goes to my TV from my computer. Sounds like a good deal. Well, let's work our way through the pricing structures here, shall we? So a 512 gigabyte model is going to be $1,049. It is noteworthy that this does not come with a controller. So you will have to buy a controller separately, which you can get bundled together for the low price of $1,128. Yummy. Next is, of course, the 2 terabyte model, which I think most people would probably prefer at this point. Most games are getting pretty big. 512 is fine if you only play a couple of games here and there and are willing to manage your hard drive, but you're probably going to want 2 terabytes just for the sake of convenience, unless you're poor. The 2 terabyte model without a controller will be $1,349, and with a controller, it will be $1,428. Wow. So we're going to read a couple of choice quotes from Valve that kind of give us an explanation as to why, because I think context is a very big part of this here. It's key to what we're about to talk about. So, quote from Valve: "We felt like we had a good understanding of how these costs might change over time when we first started sourcing them for the Steam Machine back in 2023. That understanding was born from the many years of data that we had about the evolution of PC hardware prices, primarily that it tends to get cheaper over time as new technology arrives, which of course we're all very used to. Consoles typically get cheaper with time. So you will probably remember a GameCube being $99 on store shelves at Walmart at one point towards the end of its life cycle, which was more than half of its original price. Now we're obviously seeing many price increases, which we will of course talk more about later in the episode. Component prices are skyrocketing, and it is getting to a point where even the manufacturers of these consoles cannot keep up with the prices, and so they must increase the price of the hardware themselves or take a significant loss, which is what Valve is obviously referring to. Continuing their quote, "Over the past year or so, that has changed quickly and significantly, with most visibly for RAM and storage components. There are a variety of reasons, all of which are affecting hardware products everywhere. The overall effect is that our original goal for the price of the Steam Machine is no longer viable. So the prices we're sharing today reflect the state of the world for manufacturing, or more accurately, it reflects the price of the components as we've secured them over the past 6 months. Price wasn't the only thing impacted by all of this. Availability was as well. There were periods of time where we couldn't source some of the components at all at any price. There were more than anything else. This has impacted the number of units we've been able to produce for launch." So what we're saying here is everything has gone up sky high. RAM and storage specifically. This is, of course, due to the AI bubble, as some would refer to it as. We are seeing many data centers being popped up. People, specifically these bigger AI producers and manufacturers and storage and data and all that other stuff, producers, are swallowing up the supply. So people like consumers simply just can't get their hands on it. The business behind this is, let's say Valve comes to, I don't know, NVIDIA and says, "NVIDIA, I would like 1,000 chips of your most hardcore processor," or whatever the case is, "for my Steam Machine supply. And we will be selling it at, whatever the case is, this price, and that's what we can afford to pay." And NVIDIA says, "Oh, Valve, well, that's a wonderful deal you have for me. But the thing is that Facebook, Meta, is over here, and they're willing to pay me 10 times that for the same processors because they need them for AI, and they see that they would be willing to make $1 billion gajillion off of AI in the future, and so they're willing to pay that right now." And Valve says, "Well, I can't do that because I'm selling to consumers, and consumers can't pay $1 billion gajillion for a Steam Machine, so there's no way I can actually do that." And they're like, "Okay, cool. Well, then we're going to sell to the people who give us $1 million bajillion gajillion dollars. That's kind of our MO." And it's like, okay, yeah, I mean, that makes sense from a business perspective, but because it is so cramped in the front of AI trying to take over everything and not enough supply for everybody else, we're kind of getting hit with the hard end of the stick here, which is these companies just simply can't deal with this. Now, here's the thing. Okay, so Valve has come out and said, look, we originally wanted this thing to be $750, or we haven't heard that exact figure, but they said specifically, we just increased the Steam Deck price, which they increased by $250. And they said, we kind of assumed that that price increase was going to be like kind of what we added to the Steam machine. So essentially, what they're saying is, it's $1,000 now. We were going to originally make it $750, which makes it certainly more palatable, correct? So here's the thing. Valve came out and they said, look, we can't subsidize this console. So this is where I start to get a little less generous with Valve, okay? So Valve comes out and says, hey, look, we can't subsidize it. And all these other guys, they're subsidizing their consoles because they're taking a cut of every purchase that you make on this thing. So if you aren't familiar, you have a PlayStation, for instance. If you buy a PlayStation, PlayStations are still cheaper than the Steam machine. A PlayStation 5 Pro is about $900. So it's cheaper than a Steam machine. Why is Sony able to produce these things at a lower price? That doesn't make any sense. It's the same thing because they're subsidizing it. So they're actually taking a loss on you buying the console. You're like, Henry, why would they do that? Because every single purchase, they get about a 30% cut. If you get a Netflix subscription on there, if you buy a movie, if you buy a game, if you buy Fortnite V-Bucks, PlayStation will get 30% of every transaction made on their PlayStation console. So they're not really making money off of the hardware because they're getting you in. They're getting you into the vibe of buying stuff on their console. And then when you make, 5 or 6 purchases at $70, 5 or 6 games here or there, well, they made their money back. Not only that, but they probably made some more. Now you're buying V-Bucks and you're doing your Netflix subscription through PlayStation. Hey, now they're making money. So that's how the console business works, right? So Valve is like over here being like, hey, we can't subsidize because we made an open platform. We're Valve and we believe in open platforms. So, that's why it's like, okay, let's be frickin' real here. 99% of the people who buy a Steam machine, which by the way, the purpose of it is to be a streamlined console experience for PC. They're not gonna install another OS and freaking start buying games on Epic Games Store or some bullcrap. Ain't nobody doing that. Obviously, Steam has a near monopoly on PC gaming, especially on the Steam machine, where it is going to be preloaded with a Steam OS that is going to boot up and tell you to make a Steam account or sign into your Steam account and put all your games there, and that's where you're going to be buying stuff. Adoy. And guess what? Steam isn't some benevolent ruler who doesn't take a cut of purchases on their store either. So they're taking cuts from every purchase made on Steam as well, just like PlayStation. So guess what? They are like saying, oh, we can't subsidize it because, oh, we don't have a guarantee that people aren't going to buy games on Steam through this machine. Yeah, I guess not. I guess you freaking don't. But you have like a 99% guarantee. Like, I just can't imagine the vast majority of players would switch over to another gaming platform to play their games after buying a Steam machine. That just doesn't make sense to me. Most people who are going to be buying this are not going to be some hardcore PC gaming crowd. Anyway, at least that's not who it's marketed towards. Because let's be real, it's going to be more streamlined. This is a device that fits my lifestyle. Because I like PC. I like the ease of a console experience, the streamlining of a console experience. I don't want to have to deal with all the menus and getting things set up on PC. I have done PC gaming in the past, and there are some games on PC where I spend literally sometimes hours troubleshooting a game to make it run on my specific device. Sometimes those games are older normally, but in general, it can be a problem. And that's like, if it takes me 2 or 3 hours to do that in an evening, that's my gaming time. Like, that's beyond my gaming time in most instances. So like, I don't have the time to deal with that bullcrap. I would much rather start it up and just go, have a good time. And PC gaming isn't always conducive to that. Now, Steam Deck has made that a lot more conducive, and I would love to have done that with a Steam machine. Here's the thing. Obviously, this is price restrictive. $1,000 for this machine is insane. Not only that, but this is a machine that is working at the same rate of power as a base PlayStation 5. Not a PlayStation 5 Pro. No. A base PlayStation 5, which you can get significantly cheaper. And guess what? Also will hook up to your TV. Now, obviously, you cannot play PC games with it, but if you are looking for power, which most PC players are, this is not that. Not only that, but you can get other hardware with more powerful specs for a lower price. So what it comes down to is Valve got screwed by component pricing. But could Valve have lowered this price and kind of taken a hit from subsidizing the console? Yes. I think that it's kind of silly that they didn't. It kind of makes little sense to me that they didn't. And I think people are going to be looking, especially in this economy, which, hey, I know it's a catchphrase. In this economy, I freaking know. But in this economy, I get it. People are stretched. Belts are tightening. And when you see something that is not necessary, you know, or something that is, you could really get an equivalent or better experience for less money somewhere else. $1,000+, over $1,000, not $1,000, over $1,000 is rough. It is a tough sell. And when you're telling me, well, what are the real benefits here? Well, you get to play your PC games on a TV screen. It's like, well, what? Can't I do that with like a gaming laptop? Yeah. You can. Like, you could probably buy a gaming laptop with similar specs for less money and just hook that puppy up to your TV with an HDMI cord. I know for a fact that, like, I hook up my Steam Deck to my TV. I have like a $10, $15 dock that I got off of Amazon, which, by the way, Steam charges like $80 or something nonsensical for theirs. But it's like, it's just a freaking HDMI port that hooks up to the freaking TV for the Steam Deck. But that stuff is easy to do. It's easy to do. I do it all the time, and it's way freaking cheaper. And I also maintain that I have the ability to take my Steam Deck on the go. Of course, it's much less powerful, so it is what it is. But same thing with a gaming laptop. You could do that with a gaming laptop, and that is portable. Not only that, but it has the ability to be like do a bunch of other stuff, run other OSs and applications and stuff like that, which the Steam Deck most likely cannot, or it can do. But I doubt that you'd want to do it. Like, I doubt you're going to be typing up a freaking Word doc or freaking doing your taxes or some bullcrap on your Steam machine. Like, that's just not what you're going to be doing. So I've seen comparisons of this thing technically, and it does not look that good. I saw a Giant Bomb review of the machine, and they did like a side-by-side comparison of like, here's what Death Stranding 2 looks on older hardware or comparable hardware or whatever the case is, and it does not look that great for what you're paying for. Over $1,000? No. Absolutely not. This is something that is unfortunately been hit by the AI bubble. Valve has even had to retroactively kind of walk back their specs over time. They initially promised it was going to be a 4K gaming at 60 frames per second, and then they were like, up to. Okay, we're going to change it up to that. So these guys clearly thought that they could get away with it, and it didn't work out. They, or not get away. Get away sounds a little harsh, but they thought that they could make a much better machine at a much lower price. And I honestly struggle to sit here and tell you I would pick up this thing at $750. I think if it was $600, I would consider it. And that's a rough sell. Like, that, even to me, I'd be like, $600 really just to play my PC games on a big screen. And I can do that right now if I really wanted to. Otherwise, that's harsh. That's harsh. I genuinely don't know how this was ever going to be a big thing for anybody who wasn't already somehow invested in the PC ecosystem. Okay, so that's probably a better way of thinking about it. If I had no tie to the PC ecosystem currently, if I had no Steam Deck, if I had no gaming PC, if I had nothing, and I was myself and I wanted a streamlined console experience, would I buy a Steam Deck or a Steam machine, or where would the price point be for that for me? Probably $600 is where I'd be like, that's probably a really good deal. I'd probably say that. As somebody who has a Steam Deck, who has a gaming laptop, who has other avenues to honestly not only play PC games, but play most PC games that I give a frick about on the big screen, I see no reason to buy this thing at all. Especially at a $1,000 price point. There's just no incentive to me. And I think PC hardcores that are going to be like, well, I want to play my PC games, but they're going to want a powerful device. PC hardcores are all going to be about power. And you're not getting power from this. You're getting a base PS5 level power. That's a 6-year-old device. 6-year-old device that not only is a 6-year-old device, but you can get cheaper. and it will also hook up to your TV. So it's a rough sell. It is a rough sell in a lot of different ways, and I just cannot see this thing being a success because of it.
Wait, before you comment that I'm AI, this is just a taste of the full episode of the Plug In Play podcast where I, your host, Henry, discuss video game news, reviews, and more. So come and be a part of the conversation here on the Plug In Play podcast.